educated gentlemen. They were very educated. That's what rose them and got them the power that they got, that they had. They were trying to trick Jesus because they were trying to shut him up. But Jesus, ever quick to answer right back, says, okay, you want to trick me, I'll give you the answer. And I'll shut you up. And that's exactly what he did from verse 34 through 40. Because they were asking him, they were testing him because they knew the law. They knew the law. They knew the law of Moses. They knew it word for word. So they come to Jesus and say, what is the greatest commandment? And you read it for yourself. He comes right back. He doesn't think, he doesn't just sit there, what is the greatest commandment? No, he said it right away. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and love your neighbor. It comes down to love. Let's dive deep in what love is. The Greek word for love, there's four different kinds of love in the Greek word. You have eros, agape, philos, and storge. We're going to dive in. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what eros is. That's the love between a man and a woman, or a man and a spouse, a man and a woman. It's where we get our English word erotic, for a man loving a woman. It's physical, passionate love with a sensual desire, longing, romantic, pure emotion without the balance of logic. Love at first sight. The modern Greek word erotis means intimate love. However, eros does not have to be sexual in nature. Eros can be interpreted as love for someone just a little bit greater than a brotherly love. I want to talk to you. What makes a relationship work? If I don't talk to my wife, it's communication. If I don't talk to my wife, how long do you think our marriage is going to last? Not going to last too long. I know I've only been married 3 months. We're still in that newlywed stage. But even before I was married, I knew communication was the key. Because first, I had a relationship with God. He taught me how to love my wife. Reading in His Word. I'm a very visual person. I lost my father when I was 18 years old. I learned something from my father. My father was never the greatest man. He could have done better. He wasn't the greatest man. But I knew he loved me. I knew he loved my mother. And that taught me something. I'll tell you another thing that taught me something. I have an adopted dad that some of you may know had a stroke, massive stroke, in the first part of the year. Within a couple of days of New Year's Day, he had a massive stroke. Should have killed him. But during that whole situation, I learned something. Watching my adopted dad and his wife, and they've been together over 40-some years. That taught me more about love and about what a marriage should be, is that woman stayed right beside his side the entire way, still staying beside his side. She could have walked away. She could have said, this is more than enough. She didn't. She stuck beside him and has stuck beside him for over 40 years. Now, some of you may have had that influence growing up. Don't forget it. But I tell you all that to tell, I tell you that for this point to say, it's so easy for us to love our wives, and it's so easy to be in love with our wives or our spouse, our husbands. Why can't we be in love with God? The Bible makes it plain and clear. On the day of judgment, there'll be people that have done miracles. They have laid hands on the sick and they have been healed in the name of Jesus. But Jesus will clearly tell them, get away from me. I never knew you. And that Greek word for knew means intimately. Get away from me. I've never known you. I've never had that intimate relationship that I want. There's a reason he wants our intimate relationship, and this is what I believe, and I'm just paraphrasing, and it goes all the way back to Genesis, where Jesus was walking with Adam and says, I will give you a helpmate because man should not be alone. And this is my feeling before the whole apple in the Garden of Eden ever happened. God wanted to walk with Adam and Eve. He didn't want to make man alone, which you take two words of alone, it's all one. He didn't want to have man all one. So he gave him Eve. But my feeling is God wanted Adam and Eve to walk with him in that intimate relationship. Now we all know the story, Eve and Adam fell, and we're at where we're at. But I implore you, I beg you guys, God's longing to have that intimate relationship with you. And if you don't spend time with him, if you don't communicate daily with God, how long do you think that relationship is going to last? Moving on to the second one, it's called agape, which means love in a spiritual sense, in the term of agapo, which means I love you in ancient Greek. It often refers to a general affection or deeper sense of true unconditional love rather than an attraction suggested by the Eros. This love is selfless. It gives and expects nothing. You get that? Let me read that again. This love is selfless. It gives and expects nothing in return. Agape is used in biblical passages such as the love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13, and is described throughout the whole New Testament as a sacrificial spiritual love. Whether the love is given in return or not, the person continues to love even without self-benefit. That's powerful. That's powerful. This is where we come in as a church. We're supposed to love without expecting anything in return. And when I'm talking about the church, I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about the four walls. It's good to have the four walls, to come together and commune together. But ultimately, each and every one of you is the church. So when he's saying you expect nothing in return, that means when you go to your work, when you go to your school, when you encounter people on the street. You're supposed to love them, show the love of God that God showed to you to those same people, and expect nothing in return. all sinners at some point. Were we not? The Bible says we've all fallen short of the glory. We've all fallen short of God's expectation. But it's a good thing we have Jesus. And I'll describe that a little bit later. Next one. It's called philos, or phila. It's where they get the modern word for the city of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. It's a mental love. It means affectionate regard or friendship in both ancient and modern Greek. This type of love has give and take. It's a dispassionate, virtuous love, a concept developed technically by Aristotle. It includes loyalty to friends, family, community, and requires virtue, equality, and familiarity. Philos denoted a general type of love used between friends, family, and, basically in an enjoyment of the people around you. This is where we get our neighbor. Who is your neighbor? Let me ask you, who is your neighbor? And no, I don't mean whoever lives next door to you. Who is your neighbor? Everyone's our neighbor. Everyone. I've never met you, but you're my neighbor. So, which takes me back to when Jesus was questioned, love your God and love your neighbor. So if everyone's our neighbor, we have to love everyone. Jesus is basically breaking down the law and the Ten Commandments into two specific areas. Love God, love people. It's basically it. What a common thing that we forget. But it's so plain and simple, it's written in red right here. Love God, love people. That's all it's about. And when you love God and you love people, I know we see some empty spaces. There won't be an empty place in any church in the United States of America. Amen. The church needs to grab a hold of those two principles. Amen. Love God, love people. Now you tell me, Pastor James, you don't understand the people I work with. I work in a trailer manufacturer. I understand the people you work with. But the two principles in here tell me, love God, love people. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Love God, love people. Whether they disagree with you or not. Love God, love people. Who did Jesus hang out with? Did he hang out with religious folk? I mean, you can answer. Did Jesus hang out with religious folk? sinners, tax collectors, fishermen. And if you want to believe what, and I'm not degrading the Catholic religion, but they called Mary a prostitute, but Mary hung out with Jesus. So he hung out with sinners, tax collectors, which the people despised because they were taking their money. Prostitutes, fishermen. Basically, in that day, the lowest of low, that's where Jesus went to. That's where he went to. He didn't go over here and, sorry, it's just, you have religious folk, you have normal people. Jesus didn't come over here. Jesus knew. Jesus is of God. And as you can, and it's, read Matthew 22:34. Those people studied their entire lives the law. Jesus literally started his ministry at age 30 and knew more than they ever did. At 12 years old, Jesus was teaching in the temple. At 12 years old. So Jesus didn't need to go over here. Jesus decided, okay, I'm taking the message of the kingdom over to the people that need it. I mean, they all need it, but they needed it, and it's not that they needed it more, they were accepting of me. They accepted me because they had nothing else. They were already at the bottom. The only way they can go is top. In the darkest place of my life. In the darkest place of my life, I heard Pastor Jensen Franklin say something that literally changed and rocked my world right where I was at. He said, when you're down to nothing, God is up to something. So it's no surprise that Jesus went over to the sinners, the tax collectors, the fishermen, the prostitutes, because in that day, that was the lowest you could go. The only way they could go up was up. So it's not by accident that Jesus went over there. He showed them love. We're all longing for love. Whether we're single, married, lost, found, we all want love. Why do you think gang rates are so high? Because A, there's no father in the home, and B, those gang members show them love. They show them attention. It's powerful stuff. They show them attention. They show them love. What's wrong with us going out there and showing them love so they can pack it here and not in a... And I don't want to sit here and bash. I love you guys. It's a problem with the church in general, as a whole. We missed the mark on September 11th. Those churches that we've had after September 11th were packed than they've ever been in the house in my lifetime. We missed the mark. We weren't ready. I'm not saying we need another September 11th, but I'm telling you we need an outpouring of love to get the harvest Stokoe, or I hope I'm pronouncing it right, I don't know. Means affection in ancient modern Greek. It's a natural affection felt by parents for offspring. Rarely used in ancient works, then used exclusively as a descriptor of relationships within family. It's also known to express mere acceptance or putting up with situations, as in loving the tyrant. How many parents do we have in here? Let me talk to you, the parents. What can your kids do to make you love them any less? Nothing. Nothing. Let me tell you a story. My mom knows it very well. First of all, I thank God for my mom. I wouldn't be the man that I am because of her. And I'll tell you why. I told you I lost my dad at 18 years old. I was mad. I was bitter. I was a leader in my youth group. I had prayed for my dad for 3 years during his battle with cancer. I was expecting him to be healed. I was expecting to have him for the rest of his life, which I was assuming when I was old. God took him at 18. In the middle of my senior year. Senior year in high school is supposed to be the best year you've ever had. You finally did it, you graduated. Me, I hated my senior year. I'll tell you why. Because A, lost my father. B, the goals that I had, I was a wrestler in high school. I was bumped up to 160. I was beating a state qualifier at the time, and he didn't like it, and he basically played me belly to back, landed on my neck, nerve and ligament damage in my neck. So I watched the district tournament on the weight class that I was going at 145. I watched a kid that never beat me make it to the state tournament as I'm sitting up with his family, because my mom knew his family, went to high school with him. I'm in a sling, and I'm watching him celebrate with his family when that should have been me. That's how much. But I was bitter. I was angry. I wanted nothing to do with God. I said, okay, God, I was serving you, and now that I look back, I was a high schooler. I didn't know what serving God was all about. But in my mind at that time, I served you. I was loyal to you. I prayed. But never once did I say that I pray God's will. I said, this is what I want, God. This is what I want. I'm loyal to you, so do it, because I do what your word says. But God didn't answer. He let him pass. I would say probably about 4 or 5 years. I was still in college. My mom started going to a church. And constantly praying for me. Constantly praying for me. I wanted nothing to do with it. So I was in a relationship, and we were talking, and she wanted to go to church. I still wasn't ready. Still didn't want to do anything. She invited. She's like, why don't you guys come? So I basically, and my mom knows how I am, I'm basically saying, okay, well, just to shut you both up, I'll go. I don't have to listen. I don't have to sing. I don't have to pay attention. I just have to be there. Well, a couple weeks go by. A couple more go by. I start listening more. Palm Sunday, McKinley Grand So when I tell you I wouldn't be in this situation as a youth pastor of Akron Praise Temple because of this woman, it's exactly right. I would not be in this position if it wasn't for her prayers. You talk about the love that this woman has for her child. I'm 32 years old. I'm still deathly afraid of my mother. Well, I'll be 32 in October, but I'm still deathly afraid of this woman. I'll tell you another story. Again, I told you I was a wrestler. It was probably about 3 days before a match. 10 pounds overweight, so I'm already irritable. I come home, I go up the stairs, she says something to me. I don't even remember what it was. She doesn't even remember what it was. All I know is I kind of mouthed off because I was already irritable. Okay? She literally, as I'm coming down to go for a run with my plastic suit on, all that kind of stuff, she took me from the 4th stair to the wall, not hit the ground. That's no lie. My attitude changed about like that. I'm like, I don't even know what I said, but I'm sorry. This woman and I have been through a lot. And the reason I'm the man that I am is because of her and watching her, the way she loved me. I may not have agreed with all of it at that time, but now as a 32-year-old youth pastor, I know exactly why she did it. And I'm not even a father yet. Not right now. But I say that to say is just, you think you love your kids as much as you do, and I know you all love your kids. That doesn't even compare. Compare to how God loves you. Not even a fraction of how God loves you. And I'll give you the ultimate example. We sang about it earlier. Jesus went not only on a cross, because here's where I think the church doesn't miss it, but they forget about it. Before there was a cross, there was Jesus with his back laid out, beaten, before he was crucified. For each and every one of you. Beaten within an inch of his life. Then have to drag a 200-pound cross up a hill to be crucified on. Let me go a little bit deeper. Historically, we all know Jesus had to do it. He had to fulfill prophecy. Because as you know, Jesus' bones were never broke. But the prophecy says that his body would be broken. Was the only other option if his bones weren't broken. His body had to be ripped open. But historically, he didn't have to do that. Because if you know anything about the Roman custom of when they crucified somebody, they didn't beat you and crucify you at the same time. They either beat you or they crucified you. Look at the 2 thieves. Were they beaten? Pilate decided, okay, well, let's beat him first, is because he thought that that would appease the Jewish people. But it didn't. You and I both know it didn't. So you have a man that historically did not have to go through both, going through both because of one word. Love. Love. God had so much love for you that he gave his one and only Son. John 3:16 aside. He set his Son to die, to be beaten and die a criminal's death because he loved you. How many of you would do that? How many would you give up your children so somebody else could be set free? As parents, you can't fathom that. You can't fathom giving up your only son. Or any of your children, that matter. I'm not even a father, and I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm telling you that right now. I wouldn't be able to do it. I could not do it. Here's the great thing about God. He already saw 3 days later. He already knew what was going to happen. So when he gave his son, he already knew what was going to happen 3 days later. He was going to raise from the dead for each and every one of us. Not only did he die for our sins, but he was raised from the dead so we could be set free and not have to deal with the power of sin, the holding down of sin, because he did it all. Just think of in your mind what that feels like, what that is. God gave. God gave his son for us. When I think about it, all I can think about is like I described earlier, the beating that he took. The wounds that were inflicted. The cross that he had to bear. behind them because I had to do this. Because you love them so much. So when I say the power of love, love change it all. Because if there wasn't love, there wouldn't be Jesus. Everyone, bow your head, close your eyes. Tell me, Pastor James, I've never known Jesus. I've never been introduced to him. I've never felt his presence. I've never asked him into my life. But I want to. I want to feel the presence, and I want to feel the saving grace and the mercy that Jesus has given to me, and he can give it to every one of you. If that's you, I want you to raise your hand. Nobody looking around. I want to ask Jesus into my heart. If you say, Pastor James, I knew Jesus, but kind of went through some rough stuff, rough times, and kind of let him down. But I don't want to anymore. But you say today, I want to make a fresh start. I want to make a fresh start in my relationship with God. If that's you, raise your hand. Thank you, Jesus. Second part of the altar call. As I was talking about before, there are some people that you may butt heads with at work or at school, or they're hard to love. Let's put it that way. But God's put them on your heart. Or put it on your heart to love them a little more, to show them the love of God that God showed you. If that's you, raise your hand. My third part of the altar call. We have unsaved family members that don't know Jesus. I haven't. That I call out their names all the time. Because you have unsaved family members that you even call out. That you're just desperate for God to grab a hold of them. Because you see the potential, you see the greatness that God has put on their lives. If that's you, raise your hand. If you raise your hand for any one of those three, as they play, I want you to come up here. Pray for your family members. Pray God will show himself through you. And if you want to rededicate, or if any one of those three that I mentioned, I want you to come up to this altar, and I will pray with you, and we will believe God for anything that you have. Also, if you need special prayer, if you need healing or anything like that, you can come up as well. So as they play, if there was any one of you, anybody with any of those four, special prayer, family members,